Echo TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of Health, Safety, Emergency Preparedness, Ethnic and Nonprofit Agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, the Executive Director for Echo. Echo, Emergency and Community Health Outreach. We provide health, safety, and emergency preparedness information in multiple languages. In this special broadcast, we've expanded Echo. In addition to our regular half-hour Echo program, please stay tuned for a special second half-hour roundtable discussion of our topic, Getting Ready for Kindergarten. We'll also speak with some special guests, and as always, we begin our program with a story about Ready for Kindergarten. The first day of school is a special time in a child's life. Many parents wonder what kindergarten will be like for their child. They have questions about what their child may learn and how to best help them be ready. While children have been learning from their parents since they were born, there are some things that parents need to know and activities parents can do to help their child get ready for kindergarten. In Minnesota, the first year of formal education is called kindergarten. There are 3 things that are required for children to start school. First, children must be old enough. Minnesota law requires children to be 5 years old by September 1st. Second, parents must give the school a record from their doctor or clinic that shows their child has received all required immunizations, or shots. This is called an immunization record. Immunizations are vaccines that help prevent disease. Third, children must have an early childhood screening. Early childhood screening is a quick check of how children are growing and learning and how well they can see and hear. The early childhood screening is provided by school districts, Head Start programs, and child and teen checkup programs, usually when children are between 3 to 4 years old. Parents can call the school near their home to find out more about the early childhood screening program and how to sign up their child for an appointment. Along with what is required to start school, parents can do many other things to help children get ready. Children learn best when they are healthy, so it's very important that children receive enough sleep every night. Children also need nutritious food every day, such as milk, fruit, and vegetables. Also, regular checkups by the doctor and dentist help to make sure children are healthy. Each September, Minnesota's kindergarten school teachers welcome children to their classroom. Children will learn important reading, math, science, art, music, and other thinking skills in kindergarten. A licensed teacher will use interesting toys, blocks, games, books, and other activities to help children learn language and sounds and letters for reading. Children will also learn about numbers, counting and sorting objects, science, and will sometimes use computers. Children will also learn social skills, including how to cooperate with their friends and how to behave in school by listening to their teachers. Every parent wants their child to learn as much as possible in school. Parents can do many easy and fun things at home to help their child's learning. Most kindergarten teachers want children to know their colors and shapes before they start school. Parents can help their children learn this by talking with their children about the colors and shapes of different things around the house, the neighborhood, or at the store. Making up games, songs, or stories, or reading books about colors, shapes, and counting helps to keep learning fun for children and parents. Talking, singing, reading, or telling stories to children every day helps children learn new words and develop thinking skills that are important for future learning. Children who are read to or hear stories every day do better when they go to kindergarten. Some parents read to their children in both their native language and in English. In kindergarten, children will be expected to do some simple things by themselves. When children are about 4 years old, parents can encourage children to do things for themselves, such as putting on a jacket or sweater, brushing their teeth, and washing their hands. Parents need to sign their child up for school before the child turns 5 years old. Parents can call the school near their home to find out more about starting kindergarten and how to sign up for school. Going to kindergarten is an exciting time for families. Most children are very eager to go to school to learn. Parents can help children get off to a great start for learning in school and life by knowing what to expect, helping their child be healthy, and by doing simple and fun learning activities with their child before school starts. Welcome back. You're watching a special edition of Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. And our program this time is on getting ready for kindergarten, and we brought with us a couple of guests to talk about this subject. We have Sandy Benson, a kindergarten teacher from the St. Francis School District here in Minnesota, and Ann Hoxie, a student wellness administrator from the St. Paul Public School System. Thank you both for joining us on Echo. We also will be having you on our roundtable discussion coming up in the second half hour of this special broadcast. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To be here.
Nice to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we've got lots to cover because you would think there wouldn't be a lot to talk about kindergarten, but it turns out there really is a lot to talk about. First of all, what is it? Because we have many new students that come here, whether they're immigrants and refugees who come here into a new school system, a school setting. Let's define it first. What is kindergarten exactly?
Well, kindergarten is really a milestone in many families' lives. It's the first beginning of a child's formal education within the public school system. It is the start before you enter first grade, and you need to attend kindergarten.
And of course, learning doesn't just start at kindergarten. We do all kinds of preschool and all of that. But what age are we talking about, Ann?
Kids need to be 5 years old when they start kindergarten. So after that 5th birthday, they start school when school starts in September. So,
what about age 4? Do some kids get in at age 4 at all, or sooner, or is it you have to be 5 here in the state of Minnesota? What's the law say on that?
The state of Minnesota says 5. Some school districts have provisions for looking at kids who just missed that deadline by a week or two. So if people have questions, they should talk to their individual school district.
What else is required by law, at least here in Minnesota, and every state has their own laws on this, but what else is required in order to get into kindergarten and get started?
Well, it's really pretty simple. For kindergarten, you need to be 5, like we said, but you also need to have your immunization record. So a record of those immunizations, and most kids need updated immunizations around that time they start kindergarten. So parents should be paying attention to that and bring that record to school. And the other thing is that children should have early childhood screening, and that's offered by the school district and also by Head Start and local public health. And we could maybe talk some more about early childhood screening as we go along, but it is...
Let's talk about it now, actually.
It is really an entry point to the school district. Okay. It's been a program that's been around for quite a few years, but a lot of parents really aren't aware of it. It's for children sometime after the age of 3, so 3 up to 4 or so, but it should be done well ahead of the start of kindergarten.
Okay. What are you screening for
We're
exactly?
screening for a variety of things that might make a difference for how well a child can learn and participate in school. So we look at hearing and vision, we look at other health factors, we look at their learning, their speech development, and how they can, we do some games with them to see about how they're thinking. We look at, do they have behaviors that will support their learning and getting along with other children? And then we provide access to resources both within the local school district and the wider community. So it's really a good kind of checkpoint for families.
So this is early childhood screening. What age is this taking place?
Is sometime after the age of 3. But before 5 is ideal. Okay. So somewhere in there, school districts operate this differently. Some have one time in the spring over a week or 2 where they do it. Others, like in St. Paul, where I'm from, we have a lot of students in St. Paul. We do it all year long, summer,
so it's
fall,
important to
winter.
check in with your school district to find out when this
district.
early childhood screening is taking place, exactly what's involved.
And how to sign up for it. There's no cost for the family or the child.
Okay, but it is required to have that in order to get into a school here.
Right, it's part of a Minnesota law that we provide this service to really to make sure kids are ready for school.
And as a kindergarten teacher, I find it very valuable, the information that families can gather from their screening, and also the help that children can get if there is an issue that they discover during the screening process.
What are some of the issues that you get sort of tipped off to before the child comes into your classroom so that you can be ready for them?
Some of the things could be maybe there's a speech problem, maybe there's interaction with their peers, and so they've come to the school readiness program, the ECFE program, and they learn how to interact with their peers. There also might be just a little bit of a stumbling block in how they learn or what they might be learning, and so then there's teachers that are trained to help them learn and get everything in line so that when they come to kindergarten, they're ready to learn and they have the skills that they need in place.
We want to be healthy and ready to learn, too. You mentioned immunizations. Can you talk a little bit? What's required these days for immunizations?
It's kind of a
laundry list?
It's a list, but it's a list, and it does change frequently. But it is the basic childhood immunizations. And kids need booster shots at kindergarten to protect them against diseases like tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and polio.
Yeah.
So it's a list. Many of those shots are combined so that children actually get less injections than that sounds
sure. And
like.
there's other ways they can take these immunizations as well. Some other healthy habits besides immunizations: proper rest.
Oh, yes.
I know with young children, if they don't get rest, they can be restless in school.
Right, and I think one of the things when we talked about kindergarten being such a milestone for kids is the family may have been having a routine, maybe if the parents work in the evening, where the child isn't used to getting up early and coming to school, or was able to have naps when they were tired, or have an irregular schedule because it fit in with the family. But once they start coming to school, they really need to have a regular sleep time so they can get up early. Many of them get on a school bus and have that set schedule. So I think kindergarten kids need 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night.
I would agree with that. I can tell my children that have not had enough sleep and they typically can't focus, or some of the children actually do fall asleep. And if you really think about it, we have a lot of different opportunities of how children can go to kindergarten. And so if they're there for a 6-hour day, that's a long day.
Yeah, that's a long day for a 5-year-old,
And
especially sitting still. How do you handle that?
Well, we don't sit still. Yeah. We do a lot of movement. We try to do segments of maybe 10, 15 minutes and then get up and move and then do 10, 15 minutes more. Your learning is really different than 1 through 12 because you are doing hands-on learning and you're engaging in your learning. It's not paper pencil type learning.
Of course, nobody's. Heck, even in my age, I'm not in school and I can hardly sit still. But you are basically building habits that will set a pace and a trend for the future. What can we do to get ready for kindergarten before we walk through that kindergarten door?
Well, there are some health things that parents can do because we know if kids aren't healthy, they aren't going to learn as well. So it's important to have regular checkups with your doctor and checkups with your dentist. And if you're physically healthy and your teeth are in good shape and you've had your immunizations, you're getting enough sleep and you're eating well, then you're much more ready to learn. And I think we'll ask the teacher then, what are some other things?
Some other things that I really like to see children come to kindergarten with, I like to have seen that they have used a pencil or some kind of writing tool, that they've practice cutting with scissors. And I know there are parents out there right now saying, oh, that woman, she hasn't been in my house. Yeah. But the thing is, you can take pencils, scissors, markers, crayons, keep them in a container and have it be a supervised table activity for your family. And children need to have those things available to them because they need to know how to that what their name is, and they need to be able to write it. The minimum number of letters they should know are the letters within their names. They should know colors.
Yeah, that's interesting, you know, because it seems like there's a lot of pressure there. How many colors? So many colors, rainbow colors. How many colors? How many letters of the alphabet then?
Well, for your colors, I think you better come knowing your 8 basic colors and your 5 basic shapes. Okay. And it's real easy to integrate it into your environment and to teach that. Because all you have to do is talk to your child. And while you're talking to your child, you're educating your child. You know, Lillian, do you want to wear the red sweater today or a blue sweater? And you're teaching your colors.
Every day, you're applying something that will add up in kindergarten later.
Will add up into kindergarten. Knowing your letters, I'd say to be exposed to your letter. Yes, there are children that come to kindergarten that know 26 letters and they know all of their sounds. That certainly is not the norm.
Okay.
Knowing that these are letters, these are numbers.
Okay. What about following directions? How much is enough for a child to learn before they get in? Because I know teachers are having to give directions on the first day of school.
We
Put
give
your
a
coat
lot
off
of
here, you'll
directions.
sit here, here's where we have the activity time.
A child should probably be able to follow 2 to 3 step directions, and they should be able to listen to them and then do them.
So can you give an example of a 3-step direction?
A 3-step direction that I would give a kindergartner is, the day is over, put your folder at your table spot, go get your coat, put it on, well, here we are to 4, and put your folder in your backpack.
Very demanding teacher that you are.
That would be a 4-step direction, but you can see, and they shouldn't have to do beyond that.
What's the ratio these days of teacher to students in a classroom? Just ballpark average. It won't hold your feet to the fire on the actual number, but ballpark.
It really varies in your school district. Our school district is sitting at about 20 to 22 kids in our classrooms.
In your kindergarten?
In our kindergarten classroom.
And
It gets higher.
St. Paul?
In that same neighborhood. Some of ours are lower.
Okay. But because I would imagine when you're giving directions, just knowing how to dress yourself, I'm thinking boots at winter time, where, you know, children have to apply putting their boots on, putting their coats on, and things like that. One adult, and I know you have a helper probably in your classroom from time to time, but I mean, you know, getting kids dressed just to come off the bus into the building or out of the building back onto the bus is a lot of work.
It's an enormous amount of work. And if you look at, you know, the amount of children that you have in a classroom, if you have 20 and you have a pair of mittens, you could do the multiplication. You can see I have a lot of pair of mittens, a lot of snow pants, and children need to know how to dress themselves. Those self-help skills are extremely important
What are
in
some of the
kindergarten.
primary skills that are taught in kindergarten? The computer skills, the letters, you mentioned shapes, colors, numbers, what else?
I spend the majority of my morning teaching letter sounds, letters, and then pushing those letters together to make words. And then I spend the afternoon in math. And then you weave in science, social studies, health, and they do have technology time with a technology teacher, and they have Phi-Ed, music, and art. That is in our district. Not every district is able to have that with their kindergarten classrooms. And what you want is a well-rounded child that is well-versed in all areas. And so you move through that.
Right. I think we have a real emphasis on literacy skills, on those getting ready to read. So the letters and understanding a story and being able to kind of maybe tell a bit of a story back to the teacher, and using language to get what you need.
So parents can be helpful in this
all of
before
these
kindergarten even starts. I mean, these
Yes.
are things that we can be doing at home, reading to your child, for instance.
And a lot of these are things you can do in your normal daily life. I mean, as your child becomes able to zip up their zipper, whether they're 3 or 3.5 or 4, you start helping them zip their zipper on their jacket and get their mittens on, and then you can talk in the car or when you're outside walking while you're doing dishes or cooking or rocking the baby to sleep. By talking to the child, the preschool child, about what you're doing, you're building their understanding of language and of storytelling. And really, storytelling is the richest kind of learning for all of us.
I remember vacation trips, we would count cars.
Yes.
We would read different license plates. Well, obviously, kindergartners aren't probably reading the plates, but we would talk about,
But they're talking about the letters
They are
on
talking
those
about
plates
the
and
letters
the
on the
numbers
plates.
on
It's
those
fun for
plates.
them.
Exactly, and it is fun.
And I think kindergarten age kids really like to look at the letters on a stop sign. It's just 4 letters. It's a big red sign. Or letters on some stores. I can remember when my brother, who was 4, who lived out in the country, had never had an experience in the city, but he picked out Baskin-Robbins from a sign, I think from
I knew
commercials.
Baskin-Robbins too,
yeah,
but
but
there's a
out
different
in
reason
the
why.
country, we didn't know Baskin-Robbins.
41 flavors, as I recall the numbers.
But looking at signs and using that kind of things that you have seen on television to what you see in a billboard, that kind of talking with your kids, I think, really builds their view of the world, and understanding that words are important and the written word is powerful.
And you can, when you're reading to your child, you do more than teach them about the story also, because you can teach them that text goes from left to right, top to bottom, that there is an author, there is an illustrator. And if you don't have books in your home, there's always the garage sales, there's always your local library that you can go to get books. And it's just so important for children to be read to, because then the next thing you know, your child will be reading to you. And there's the other piece within a home that you model reading by you reading. If it's the newspaper, a magazine, a novel, whatever, you are modeling it. Same as writing. You start writing and you're making a list or whatever you're doing, and you're showing your child that you need to do this. This is important to learn how to do this. And we do model that at home, the importance of our education and what we can learn, and that we need to listen to the teacher, because the teacher has a lot to tell us and a lot that we need to do.
Social skills is something else that you can help with your children and help them get ready to, I mean, you know, they've got one child or brothers and sisters in the home, but when you're talking about 22 others in a classroom, social skills come into play. How do we work with children on this?
Well, can I go back to early childhood screening for a minute? That is one spot where if a child's having some difficulty getting along with peers or with adults, that might be identified at early childhood screening, and we can look for ways and services in the community to help parents. But it is just by example again, and helping them learn to share their toys and take turns and say please and thank you and I'm sorry. That's kind of what I think.
I would agree. When we have children within our classroom, we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year building what we call our kindergarten community. And within kindergarten, how do you treat one another? You know, we don't hit, we don't kick, we don't push. How do we talk to each other?
Raise our
Please,
hand.
thank you, raise your hand. We can't blurt out because you can't hear everyone. So we need everyone to raise their hand, and I will call on you when I see your hand and can get you, you know, get...
At home, I think parents can do things like turn taking. I mean, you know, whether in a big family or a small family, there are always opportunities to practice. It's now your turn, or it's somebody else's turn. Or when you're out in the community, there's you line up at the grocery store to buy your groceries, and you have to wait your turn. And by talking through some of those normal things that we all do in our daily life, just putting words to it and saying it out loud helps kids.
If parents want to get their children involved in early childhood programs, what should they do for that? And then also when they're at school, what's the best way to communicate to schools about things that may be going on at home or in school or things like that?
Well, school districts offer a wide variety, and communities broader than the school district offer a variety of programs, sometimes in the church, sometimes through Head Start. Early Childhood Family Education is a program that's in all Minnesota schools, and it's for families and young children. So to really check in with your local school district to see what's available. Okay. You can do that through a lot of ways. Websites, of course, nowadays are easy. The telephone, stopping into your neighborhood school and asking, and getting to find out where do you go in your community to find that information out. There really are a lot of opportunities, and some do have some tuition, but many do not. And so parents should really investigate and ask questions.
And last question, and the best way to communicate to your school about your child, things going on at home or things you want to talk about the school about, best way, is that just to go through the teacher?
The beauty of our schools and our system now is that you have a lot of ways to communicate with your teacher. You can write a note, you can do an email, you can call on the telephone, and you've got a variety of different menus of what you can use. But just remembering that I think every school district in the state of Minnesota asks the child to bring a backpack. And in that backpack will come home a wealth of information.
Check the backpack.
And check that backpack and send in that backpack, because as a kindergarten teacher, we check that backpack daily for everything that you'd want to send to us.
Well, we've talked about a lot, and of course we want to invite everybody to stick around for the next half hour. We'll have more discussion on this topic, including more questions from parents that have some ideas of their own they want to share and get some answers to. But for now, we want to give you 3 key messages on this important subject. The first one is children who are healthy, they learn better in kindergarten. The second, parents help children get ready for kindergarten in many ways. And then finally, when children are 5 years old, they are ready to start kindergarten here in the state of Minnesota. I'd like to thank both our guests once again, Sandy Benson from St. Francis School District and Ann Hoxie, the Student Wellness Administrator, St. Paul Public Schools. Thank you very much. And stick around for the second half hour of ECHO. If you want to learn more about ECHO, please visit our website at echominnesota.org. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and once again, please stick around for the next half hour, an extended discussion on this important subject, getting your child ready for kindergarten.
Hi, I'm Matt Burke of the Minnesota Vikings. I learned a lot at Harvard, but nothing could prepare me for being a dad. I had lots of questions. Now I can find answers on the Minnesota Parents Know website, developed by the Minnesota Department of Education. Raising children can be rewarding and challenging. That's why trustworthy information at your fingertips is important for you and your child. To learn more, go to mnparentsknow.info. Because when parents know, children grow.
You're watching a special edition of ECHO TV featuring a discussion on getting your child ready for kindergarten. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, the Executive Director for ECHO, which stands for Emergency and Community Health Outreach. You know, the beginning of a child's formal school, it's called kindergarten, and it's a big step for children and their families. In our first half hour, we did an overview of the subject, and now we have an opportunity to bring together a whole panel of experts for a roundtable discussion on how we can get our children ready for kindergarten. Let's introduce our guests. First, we have Huda Farah. She's the Executive Director of HEAL, which stands for Health, Education, Access, and Leadership, and she's a former ECHO TV host. Ann Hoxie is the Assistant Director for Student Health and Wellness for St. Paul Schools. Also joining us, Sandy Benson. She's a kindergarten teacher at the St. Francis School District and a consultant for the Minnesota Department of Education. Angele Passe is a consultant and writer in early education. Her book, My Kindergarten Book, helps children and parents prepare for kindergarten, and it's both available in English and Spanish. And she's at work on a new book on the transition into kindergarten. And also joining us, Jesse Cowley. He is the Hmong Project Manager for Ready for K. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving school readiness right here in Minnesota. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for this roundtable discussion on ECHO.
Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate you bringing all your different expertise to our program and to our viewing audiences. And kindergarten is a big deal, let's face it. It's a huge opportunity for children to get started and be successful in life, as we all are lifelong learners. Let's start with just an overview with what's kindergarten like? What's a typical day? And maybe I should direct this to the kindergarten teacher appropriately. What's a typical day like?
Well, a typical day is the children get off the bus, and then we start with some kind of opening, and then you move into some maybe large motor activities so the children can get their antsiness out. And then we have to move into some pretty heavy curriculum, because we are responsible for standards within the state of Minnesota. And we do reading, writing, math, science, social studies, health. And sometimes the children on certain days will go to either Phi-Ed, music, art, or technology.
What can parents expect? I mean, parents this is their first child going off to school, and it seems like all parents can remember. I remember that first day when I let you go. What should they expect from schools or from that whole first day? Anyone?
I think they should expect a totally exhausted child, because it's a lot of transitions, it's a lot of anxiety of what's going to happen next, and those children move into the routine faster than any of us ever thought of moving into the routine. They catch on very quickly, and they're ready to move and learn.
Mm-hmm. What about for students who might not have English as their primary language? What about expectations for them?
Well, keep in mind that some parents have a fear that their child, sons or daughter will be going to school. They might expect phone calls. They say, you know, my child might not understand what the teacher is asking him or her, and then they will stay home and worry about it. You know, just like in the first week, I have to be home to make sure that, you know, when the teacher calls, I'm ready to pick up my kids. For example, a child might get some kind of accident, you know, or might not get along with the other kids in class. And there might be some other issues. I noticed that some child that are going to schools at kindergarten, they don't want to leave their parents. They were crying, you know, I want to go home. I want to go with mom and dad. Because, you know, that's you know, the fear that they have, you know, in the first couple of weeks. So
sure. And typically when children will start school, if they haven't spoken English before, they might just continue to speak their home language. So that could be a little surprising for the teacher too.
Yeah, how does a teacher address something like that?
And so most teachers are actually learning to have very positive body language, to be nice in English, to speak a little slower. So then the children start to realize that the teacher is going to be okay, and so are they. And I think it's important for parents to actually tell their children that the teacher may not speak their language. And if they have that advanced preparation, then they can sort of like think about, well, there might be an alternative way of communicating.
And it's important that when we're trying to integrate children together in a classroom situation from all different types of backgrounds, making the educational experience very rich and diverse at the same time. And so that's really important. One quick question here about getting your child ready for school in terms of reading to them. How important is reading to them? We know it's important, but are there studies or research out there that say, you know, I mean, reading is everything?
Well, reading is not the only thing that we do for the kids. I think we have to tell stories. We have to communicate with the kids every day. I mean, that's, you know, that's going to help besides reading. And reading is important for them because that will help them build their vocabularies and will help them, you know, communicate better and recognize words better outside their native language. I mean, I think that's crucial that every parents need to spend time and read for the kids.
We'll add more to that in just a moment as we're hearing from our guests that reading to children is a key to preparing them for kindergarten. Right now, we'd like to show you a short video on just that subject.
Hi! Hola, beautiful. Change of plans, honey. Oh, we're going shopping.
What?
Back at 4. The guys are all here. Have fun.
Hey, game's on. TV's broken.
It's Dad's turn.
It's broken? He's got to be joking.
Now what?
Well, what do we do? Here, hold us. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. I like George. He was a good little monkey and always very pure.
It's never too early to read with your child.
How many out of those? 1, 2...
Even before they can read words.
It's a dog.
Kids are learning from you, connecting with you.
Faces so baby will laugh at you.
Kids like to get involved in reading, and if you make reading fun, they won't be able to get enough of it.
What about 3 Little Firefighters?
Read together. It helps kids learn.
For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
You're watching Echo. We're talking about the importance of reading to your children so that they can be ready for kindergarten. And Angele, you want to talk about it's not just reading to your children, but it's also talking to your children.
Right, it is. And so when we talk with children, we actually help them develop their thinking. We ask them questions. We help them develop their vocabulary. And especially for families who have two languages in their family, or even if they do not speak English, that they are able to speak in their home language is very important. It's actually going to be the foundation for their later learning. And so we want to encourage families to do a lot of talking about anything that happens at home, that happens in the street, the birds, a bird in Somali is a shimbiro, I think. And so a shimbiro does the same thing that a bird does. They fly, they eat insects, they do all these things. So for parents to know that their children will develop their language and vocabulary from their home language and then go into English and is very important.
And more now, bilingual education is required and throughout the educational system. Get them started early.
Yes, and speaking both languages is very important.
Let's talk about health for a second. Health plays a key role in a child's ability to learn in kindergarten. Obviously, eat right, sleep a lot, get what you need to be healthy. But just exactly what would you recommend at this stage of the first day of school?
For the first day of school, I think bring those immunizations, bring that immunization record, but also to have the child ready for school with a good breakfast that day and every day and a good night's sleep before. We know that kids who have had enough sleep and the right things to eat and some exercise will learn better. I'd also just like to say, if a parent's worried about something with their child's health, maybe their child has asthma or some children have allergies to certain foods, we can, and that's one of those fears that parents have when they send that child off to kindergarten at the beginning. If they talk with the teacher or the school nurse or the principal about those worries, we can make plans, individual plans at school, so that their child will be safe.
And things that may be going on in the home too, like both parents are working, so maybe the child is going to aftercare after school or something like that, or maybe there's some problems in the home, a sick family member or something. The emotional aspects of a child's health are important to consider as well.
Right. The adults in the school really want to help the children, but we can't do that if we don't know what the parent sees is going on for the child at home. I think.
That's true, and what's important also is building the self-esteem of that child, their emotional health before they go to kindergarten, them being ready and having independence and knowing how to socialize with other children. And though the parents are not there, their brothers and sisters are not there, but they are able to make friends and they're able to play with other children is very important. So their emotional stability and self-esteem is very important.
There are so many influences now. There is the influences at home, the influences of the neighborhood. There's television. There's music. There's computers. There's iPods. There's cell phones. There's text messaging. There's just so much information for a 5-year-old child getting ready for kindergarten. What kind of limitations or what other things should be considered in preparing children for kindergarten and the use of technology and so that you don't become a couch potato, you know what I mean? You use just enough to learn and it enriches education, but not too much and can be a problem.
In our school, we like to talk about it as screen time. And we tell the parents to limit your child's screen time. So that includes your videos, your TVs, your computer, the movies that they see, anything that's on a screen. Because we do want the kids outside playing, and we want them reading and looking at books. We want them going to the library.
Is there a recipe for that, like X number of hours for this, Y number of hours
Well, it depends upon which family you're in.
Okay.
Because every family has their rules. But to really look at it, I've never heard of a recipe for how many hours or minutes you should do it, but just limit it and be really conscientious of it. In my kindergarten class, I asked the kids, how much time did you spend last night? And I also want to know, did you play outside? Did you read books? Did you listen to music? Because there's a lot of other really enriching things you can do within a life in the home of a child.
Well-rounded education that way too, and experience, especially with exercise these days. So many of our activities create us to sit still. We mentioned earlier that stories can be really important part of learning, and we'd like to show you a quick video that shows parents how easy it can be to create stories for children.
Kids love to hear stories.
Who's that, Grandma?
Oh, that's my Grandma Isabel.
My name's Isabel.
Real stories.
Grandma Isabel just loved horses more than anything else in the
And
whole
make-believe
world.
stories.
Once upon a time, up grew a beanstalk way up into the air.
And kids love to tell stories.
The great ballerina. And she is right here.
Can you show me?
Storytelling stirs curiosity, builds vocabulary, and creates an interest in reading.
This was for her horse, Blackjack.
Stories help kids connect to words and to you.
And did you know he was Grandma Isabel's first horse?
So be a storyteller.
Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up.
Oh, all you need now is a horse.
Get up on the big horse.
Share stories. It helps kids learn. For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
We're talking, too, about how much TV time is enough time. Angele, how much TV time have you heard is enough time?
Probably about a half hour to an hour a day, no more than that. And we know many children will spend 4, 5, even 6 hours a day watching television, 4- and 5-year-olds, and that's much too much.
That's a contributing factor to exercise issues and health issues.
And also, in some ways, I know there have been studies that show that when we are watching for a long time, our brain sort of like slows down. And so that doesn't happen when they are playing, for example, or when they are reading and looking at books. So we want those little brains to really work very fast. And so we want to give them the opportunity to get off and maybe come back to their television later on, but just go and play for a while.
And, of course, be choosy about the types of programs that they're watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about going back to the language comments that were made earlier. We talked about the importance of retaining the primary language in the home, whether it's Spanish, Hmong, Somali, or whatever. What if, I mean, how much English should a limited English proficiency student, in the beginning anyway, have in command before they start school? Is there something in particular you think they need to have? Numbers or letters or?
If they have enough language to get along, which we call sometimes social language, to talk about what they need, to say hello, to say goodbye, to know some of the common words, like it's time for lunch, and sort of like words to get along. So if they have been in a preschool program, they probably have had their instruction in English, because that often is the language of instruction. If they have not, and if they have been at home, then they can start learning English in school.
What's key is that the children know well enough their home language. If the child perfects language and have enough vocabulary in that language, it will be easier for them to learn second language and third language.
Okay.
So the parents should invest in teaching their children their home language, then build on that one.
The children are having an opportunity to learn more than one language, obviously, in the classroom as early as kindergarten. Many of the parents don't have that opportunity or don't have the time to pursue that opportunity for whatever reason. What do parents who have limited English proficiency do? How do they navigate the school system? Are there interpreters available to help them?
At our school, there are interpreters. And when we have our kindergarten open house, the parents let us know that they need an interpreter. And then we arrange for that to be there at conferences or at any time that we are going to be speaking with them.
Okay. And so they can just ask on the spot, go to the office and go from there for a special event. But what about day to day? My child is having problems with this or that homework assignment, or brought this problem at home as well. They'll be able to solicit the support of an interpreter.
Sometimes they need to wait, unfortunately, because an appointment has to be made with an interpreter. If they call the school ahead of time, and they have an appointment already, sometimes it cannot be as spontaneous as they would like it to be.
Okay.
Well,
because there is a shortage.
I would like to encourage parents to use the resource in the community. I mean, like other nonprofit organizations are having programs that are helping kids learn. And they can use the library. I mean, library now they have tutors and people that are there to help the kids. So, I mean, don't keep the kids at home. Take them out to the library or to places where they can learn from others.
I heard, I'm sorry?
The schools that have enough population of that language normally have liaisons that work with those families. So they have on staff someone who could speak that language and help the parent navigate the system or communicate with their teacher.
I heard from a Somali father one time about the importance of trying to retain a sense of the culture in the family and benefit from learning from other cultures in the community as well. How can parents and how do schools help with that so that your culture can learn about my culture and vice versa? Because that's important that we have an opportunity to get to know each other in a classroom and in a community.
Well, I think schools do a lot of education around that and have special events. The Hmong New Year's coming up, and in St. Paul we'll have several schools that have Hmong New Year celebrations, but everyone's invited. So we do some of those things. I'm not sure that we can ever do as much as parents might like. So from a parent's point of view, to discuss that with the teacher, to look for, some schools will have parent groups that are conducted in their home language, a Spanish, kind of Spanish-speaking PTA. Some of those things are available, or parents could start some of those groups. And I think there are school people that are interested in helping families come together and build a community within the school.
Another way of communicating is parents volunteering in the schools, being part of their child's classroom. So they really will have that impact. Sometimes I present in certain classes, even from the kindergarten, if my son, and up to 8th grade, I go and talk about my life, how I came here, what's my culture. And really, I get beautiful cards and letters from those children. So they learn through these activities and through connecting, that personal connection.
And again, it goes back to storytelling. You're telling the story of your culture and your background, and we're learning something at the same time. Good suggestions. One of the messages I'm hearing from this group is that we can help our children get ready to school in small ways every day. Here's another video on that point.
Hey, I thought you two were going to read together.
We're all going to read.
Our world is filled with words and signs.
Watch your step.
What's your step?
Look at this, an icebox right here.
Yep.
Hello, how you doing? Welcome. That means they're glad to see us.
There are things to read everywhere.
All these words and signs.
Hey, Mom likes home canned pears.
Can you say that?
Yes, it's bread.
And we like bread.
Kids learn that words and signs have meaning.
That sign
Point
says,
them out. Read them out loud.
live bait. What did it say?
Live bait.
You're helping him make sense of the words all around him.
It's that one.
When reading's fun, kids want to read everything.
Grandpa, can fish read too?
I sure hope not.
Read signs together. It helps kids learn.
For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
We're talking about how to get your child ready for kindergarten. You're watching Echo. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and our discussion is focusing on just that. How do we get children ready for kindergarten? And a little bit challenging might be, how do we help them feel confident about themselves in school, with people they've never met, and new adults in their lives, and all of that? Jesse, what would you advise parents on how you can get any child their confidence up for that first day of school and then throughout?
Well, it goes back to what Angele was saying earlier, that you need to speak to your child. The more they communicate with their adults at home, or their peers, or their siblings at home, that help them to overcome their fears in connecting or learning what they need to learn. And besides, that also help the children to build their critical thinking and build on, that language that, will help them understand what actually each of them need to build on the skill that they need to interact with adults and other strangers. I mean, the more communicate, the more talks they have with other people, the more they can overcome with the shyness and their fears. And I think that will help them build confidence in their learning and their interaction with other people.
There are the two things that are very important. first thing is making the environment rich learning environment. So there has to be many opportunities for children to play with things, to experiment, to see how things work. So they will carry on that when they go to kindergarten and go to school. The second thing is helping children solve problems. So problem solving, so the parent doesn't rush whenever the child is stuck with something. So keep them on task and telling them just how to do things and keep going and encouraging them so they will stay on task.
And I just want to add that parents need to praise their children. I mean, if they're coming from a cultural background that you don't usually praise your kids, maybe it is time to adjust that and try, help your kids with, with things that they can do well and praise them, encourage them, compliment them in a way that was support their self-esteem, and I think that can help them improve that.
There's a lot to learn too if you're a new arrival to the United States and you're bringing your children into the school system. We're talking about resources for children, but there must be some resources for the parents too to help give them information just like that. Do many schools have programs like this for parents to support them through the process of rearing a child through the school system?
Well, actually, through the state of Minnesota, there's the Early Childhood Family Education Program, which is ECFE, which does a big job of working with immigrant families also to help them understand, be a little bit of a cultural guide to what happens in the schools. And I was thinking in our discussion that a very important thing in American education is to be able to speak in public and talk to the classroom, to your friends in the classroom. And so in kindergarten, they do something called show and tell, where a child might bring a toy from home, his teddy bear or something, and then has to explain to the class why this is important. And so for parents, if parents understand that and know that, they can help their child at home rehearse and then talk to his classroom, and that will help their confidence too. So I think any opportunities parents have to understand and to go to classes on how to understand American education is a good thing to do.
And a lot of this is relationship building too. And if you're working on your own relationships as an adult, your child is going to be watching you role model that behavior. How about parents helping children start relationships and build on social skills that help them in kindergarten? What would you suggest children do and parents do to work with making friends in classrooms and things?
I think parents can model how you make friends and also help the children by giving them the words. Ask your friend, can I play with you? Tell your friend, I don't care for how you're treating me. And I think by doing that, you have modeled and your child will be a social person within the classroom that they are entering into.
And able to take care of themselves when things aren't going so well, so they can address that.
And with what Jesse said, being comfortable going to an adult so that if something isn't quite right, they can go to the adult and say, I need your help. And you can help problem solve it with them.
Surprisingly, some of the simplest things appear to have a big impact on a child's readiness to learn, like talking with them. Here's a video on just that thought.
Hi, Grandma. What you doing?
Just planting.
Oh. Hey, Dad. What you doing?
Hey, just cooking.
You may not always feel like chatting, but the fact is, kids need conversation to help them learn.
Actually, I'm not just planting. I'm making a home for these beautiful begonias. Would you like to help me?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you how I'm making my spicy pizza?
Fortunately, life offers plenty of opportunities to connect with your kids and engage them in rich conversation.
Pretty purple petunia.
Petunia.
So talk to your child, even before she can talk to you. The more words, the better.
Are you ready for the super secret spices?
What conversation do you think the plants will have?
They're gonna have a conversation of good stuff.
Mozzarella cheese.
Mozzarella?
Yeah, come on, let's go.
Talk with your kids. It helps them learn. For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
All right, one more question in our program. You're watching Echo. Ann, I'm going to start with you on this one. It has to do with what if your parent feels they're not quite ready for kindergarten?
If a parent's concerned that their child's not going to be able to come into a kindergarten class and be part of the group, or that there's skills they don't have, I think they should talk to the school district, to the teacher or the principal, and they should also bring their child to early childhood screening, because that screening that we've talked about earlier in this show is a time when parents can learn about where their child is in relation to what we would expect for their age.
Okay. Anybody else want to touch on that?
Well, I think that's something that parents need to find a way to, to assess their children's ability to learn. I mean, the early child screening, this is one tool that can help us to,
see where they're at on track.
To track the children's ability to learn. But, keep in mind that there are, like I said earlier, there are all kinds of resources out there. And it really depends on how parents spend their time with their children and how they utilize the resource out there in the communities to help their children.
We'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us, and to you for watching us on this special edition of Echo TV. If you want more information on how to get your child ready for kindergarten, contact your local school district. And, of course, you can also take a look at Echo website. This program will be there in English, Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. You can see it at echominnesota.org. We hope you've enjoyed this special edition of Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a great day.
Echo TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of Health, Safety, Emergency Preparedness, Ethnic and Nonprofit Agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.